Hello, hello. Welcome to Motivation Monday with Lois. Such a beautiful day today. So come on in and catch the live. If you're catching the replay, type hashtag replay. And if you're on the live, come in and say hi to me and let me know where you're from. So today is Motivation Monday with Lois. And so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lois Godot, and I am the founder of this Facebook group, Resilient Mosaic Step Parents, and also the coaching program, Mosaic Transformation Academy. And within the academy, I help step parents who are 1 to 3 years in the blending family process, and they're combining the two families. And I help the step parents have a voice and to feel valued and respected as they build and create this beautiful foundation with their partner. And so today it's Motivation Monday, but we've been doing a 4-part series on open communication in the blended family. And today is part 3, and we're going to talk about communicating with your partner. So again, come on in. Let me know that you're here. Say hello, so I'll know that you showed up. And so the first thing I want to say is that when you're dealing with your ex-partner, what makes it different is that when you're in a relationship, an old relationship, when it's over, you can move on and you don't even have to speak to that person again. But when you have children, that becomes difficult because usually the children, they want to stay connected to the bio parents. And if you have a court order or if you have some type of parenting plan, the court may order the children to spend time with one or both of the parents. So you're still connected to that ex partner. And so they're going to continue to be a part of your life and also your stepchildren's life. Or if the partner is your ex partner, they're going to continue to be a part of your children's life. And so there's no way to get around it that they are a part of your life. And one of the things that I like to say is that your relationship is not just you and your partner, it's you, your partner, and your children's biological parent. A lot of people don't like to accept that. They try to push them out and, they're not a part of it, but they are a part of it. Because remember, your child is half of your partner. So what you love about your child is not just because they're your child, but they're also your ex-partner's child. And so to kind of remember that they're always going to be there part of, unless they're not active in their life or unless they're not here for the child. I talked earlier in one of my lives about the Brady Bunch because growing up, that's what I saw, the Brady Bunch. But one of the things with the Brady Bunch is that both of the parents' spouses were dead. So they were widowers. And there's a new program on, I think it's TLC, it's called The Blended Bunch. And again, both of the parents are dead. So the two people that got together, they were widowers. And so that's um, sort of like an indication of how the blended family is, but it's not a total representation because 9 out of 10 times the parents won't be dead and they will be an active part of your blended family. So those portrayals on TV, even though I know that they're on TV, but it's not an accurate portrayal because the ex-partner is an active part in that blended family. And because they're connected to the kids and the kids love their biological parents, they will continue to be a part of that whole process. And so you have to find a way to be able to interact with them and to be able to deal with them. One of the things I wanted to touch on that's rarely acknowledged when we're talking about the blended family, and that's grieving the death of a marriage. Grieving the death of a marriage. It could be a marriage or grieving the death of a long-term relationship. And any type of grief, there's going to be some mourning and there's going to be a period of time for the healing to take place. Because just like any other loss, it hurts. And it might take years for the healing to happen and for the person to move on. Now, remember, for this Facebook group, I'm talking to people that are 1 to 3 years in the blended family process. And a lot of times when you get with that person, the relationship may have just ended or may have ended not long ago. And so that ex partner is still in the grieving process. So I know there may be some people that say, well, I've been in this relationship 7 years and I'm still dealing with issues. Remember, I'm talking about 1 to 3 years in this process, and the grief may still be going on. And the grief may come out in different ways. There's different ways that people grieve normally. And when you have the death of a marriage, people grieve in different ways. It may show up as they're fighting the separation or divorce. They don't want to let it go. The grief may show up like that. Even if they know that their ex-partner don't want to be involved with them or to stay with them, they're still fighting. And grief may show up like that. Grief may show up when they're struggling to accept the new relationship. And so, because they're struggling to accept a new relationship, they may cause the children not to accept it. They may be very against this partner. They may talk badly about the partner because they don't want to accept that their ex partner has moved on. Some of them may feel threatened by this new partner. They may feel that they're trying to be replaced, and grief may show up like that. And some may not even want your relationship to succeed. So they create problems and create drama, and they may even be manipulative in that relationship. So again, grief is going to show up, especially when it's the death of a marriage. Because remember, or a relationship, when you and that person got together, you got together because hopefully you loved one another and you wanted this to be long term. And when you started having children, you had an expectation about your life with this person. And then all of a sudden, it's over for whatever reason. It could be the person fell out of love with you. It could be the person wanted to move over. Whatever the reason is, there's still a death of the marriage. And so that's not something that you wanted, because you didn't get into this relationship thinking that, oh, okay, 6 years into it, 10 years into it, maybe even 2 years into it, that we'd be over. But it's a reality. And so there's nothing you can do about your ex partner, because that's something that they would have to go to get some help with that. Because grief is, it can turn into a mental health issue where they can grieve for so long that it can cause them to start having other problems. So that's something that they have to deal with. But I just like to let people know that that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with grief. Not that that's an excuse, but so you can know what's going on. So when you get into this relationship with your partner, and the person may be exhibiting some of these things that I said, unable to let go, you're like, what's wrong with them? Why aren't they letting go? Why are they still dealing with this? Why are they still saying the same thing? Because they're dealing with the grief. And remember, there's no expiration on grief. Even if it happened a year ago, they may still be dealing with it. So that's just something for you to know, that when you get into the relationship, the first 1 to 3 years, while you're trying to blend your family, that person is going through their grief also. And that's why some of these things may be showing up. One of the things that I said was that grief can show up in as manipulating, as manipulating a relationship. And that's what I want to give you tips about, how to help with that manipulation piece. Because those 4 things that I mentioned, I could talk about that, and in my coaching program, I do talk about that, strategies to help you to be able to deal with the ex-partner. But we only have so long on this live today. So I really want to talk about the manipulation piece. And so the first tip, number 1, is to let the bio parent interact with their ex-partner. Let the bio parent, the biological parent of the children, interact with the next partner. Why do I say this? Well, first of all, especially in the beginning of the relationship, they have that history with them. You don't. And if this person is dealing with grief, do you think they want to listen to anything that you're saying as the step parent or the partner? They don't want to hear what you have to say. They may even accuse you of being the reason why the relationship ended. So they really don't want to hear you. And a lot of times what I've seen is that step parent or that partner want to interact. I want to let them know who I am. I want to let them know that they're not going to run over me. I want to let them know. They don't care about that. They already know that he's with you because he's not with them, or she's not with them. And so one of the things that you're doing, it's not really helping, because you're the one being the mouthpiece and you're the one that's out there and saying everything. It just stirs up more and more conflict. Now, remember, this is only if the person is being manipulative. I know there are some people that they've gotten to their blended family and they say it's beautiful. They don't have these issues. So if that's not you, then that's this is not for you. But these are for the ones that remember the person may be manipulating. And so let that bio parent deal with them. Let them be the one that talk to them because again, they have a history with them. They know what to say and what not to say. And the only exception I say is if they're disrespecting you. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. If they're disrespecting you, absolutely you say something. Don't become a doormat and let someone walk over you. But 9 out of 10 times, when there is a situation, let that biological parent be the one to step up. Now, both of you can sit back and have a discussion of how you'd like it to go, of what you want to be done. You two, absolutely, that's that parenting piece. You two talk about it, but let him be the one or she be the one to talk to that parent. Tip number 2, and this is one that it's a hard one for parents to really, I guess, come to grips with. And that's you can't control what your ex partner does. You cannot control, once you leave that house, you can't control that they talk to you. You can't control that you resolve issues with them. You can't control those things. And that's something you have to get real clear about early on in the relationship. Yes, there's things that you can go to court and let the courts decide and let the courts get involved in it. But you yourself can't control anything. 9 out of 10 times, they're mad at you. So if you say one thing, they're going to do the opposite. Because remember, I said there's that grief, and grief shows up in different ways. And so if you think that, oh, I'm going to control and I'm going to make this happen, it's not going to happen. One thing that happens is that they may have different family values than you do. That's another thing. They may have different family values. And when I say family values, it's about the way you see things, your belief system, your things that you accept, things that you don't accept. They may be okay with some things that you don't accept, and you can't control it. And that's why I say you have to get clear about things that you cannot control. Tip number 3, learn to recognize when the manipulation is being used. And that's another one. Sometimes we don't recognize when this person is really manipulating me to after it's all said and done. So I call this the salesperson. Sometimes when you go to buy something, they'll want an answer right away. Tell me right away, and they'll pressure you. And so you have to take a step back and say, no, let me think about this. That's the same way with this, is that if you need time to consider whether a demand is reasonable or an argument is valid, at the moment, you may not be able to process it. So you just say to them, you know what, let me get back to you on that, and I'll let you know what I think. Because sometimes when they're demanding an answer right away, it might be a manipulation tactic. So you need time to be able to process it and step back from the situation. So learn to recognize when manipulation is being used. Tip number 2, a manipulator is good at making others feel guilty about things. And this is a big one that happens in the blended family with the ex-partner. They may make you feel like something is your fault, although it's not your fault. They may make you feel guilty for something that's out of your control. Well, if you were here, this wouldn't have happened. Well, if you had did X, Y, Z, then we wouldn't be in this situation. So it's always this manipulation to try to make you feel guilty about things that A, has nothing to do with you, or B, that's out of your control. So again, for tip number 4, don't become guilty over things that you have no control over. And we talked about in the Facebook group about the guilty parent syndrome. That's one that the ex-partner uses a lot to say, you know what, if you were here, and of course you're going to feel bad if something's happening with your kids and you feel like I could have stopped it. So that's where that manipulation comes in. So you have to be aware of that. Tip number 5, as much as you try, sometimes you can't communicate with the ex. through one-on-one or through face to face. So you have to find another way to communicate with them. You may have to communicate with them through an email. You might have to communicate with them through a text or maybe even a third party. You have to realize when it's just becoming too difficult, if every time you communicate with them, it ends in an argument, it ends in what happened in the past, it ends in, let me tell you how I feel about you. If it keeps ending at that place, then maybe it's best to find another way to communicate with them. There's nothing wrong with texting. There's nothing wrong with an email. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting a mediator if you can't communicate with this person. And tip number 6, stick to the subject matter. When you're communicating with them, don't revisit old arguments and go down that road and discuss things that happened in the past and back to, I didn't want this anyway, because remember, they may still be dealing with their grief. And so they want to continue to go back to the way it should have been. And oh, you shouldn't be with that person anyway. And what happened to the relationship? And why couldn't we make it? And going down that road, just stick to whatever you're talking about and whatever it is that you came to talk to them about, complete that and just move on. And don't continue to talk about the past. Because again, a manipulator loves to bring up the past and to show you what you did wrong. And so one of the things it helps to remember is that you and your partner, you're in charge of your relationship. They're not in charge of your relationship. They are in charge of what happens at their house. And you have to realize what you can and cannot control. And one of the things is you can't control what happens at that house. Again, if there's any danger, anything with the kids, you can always go back to court. So the courts will deal with that. And I said in a live earlier that sometimes, their value system may be different. And so they don't have a problem with the kids going to bed at 12 o'clock on a school day, but you do. Can you control that? You can't. But you can control what happens when they're at your house. When they're at your house, you know that they're in your custody, and it's up to you to make sure that they are well taken care of, that you take care of their well-being, and that you make sure that your values and that you love and you guide them and you have structure for them. And that's all you can be responsible for. But having that parenting piece where you and your partner talk about things and talk about how things make you feel, that's going to really help the process. So that's all I had today, was those 6 tips for the ex-partner. So I did have a question that came in, and the question is, the ex likes to drop by unannounced when we have the kids with us, and it makes me so angry. The ex-partner likes to drop by unannounced when we have the kids, and that makes me so angry. So I'm thinking that the question is, because they didn't say the question, they just made a statement. And so I'm just going to talk about that. And remember earlier I said, one time when you can say something is when the ex disrespects you. Well, this is talking about boundaries. If there is a parenting plan in place, if there's visitation in place, there's no reason for them just to drop by, because that's disrespecting boundaries. Sometimes they drop by is because they don't want to let go of the relationship. Or sometimes they stop by because they don't want to respect the relationship. So now boundaries are being crossed. So you absolutely have to let them know how you feel, because this is your house. This is your place. This isn't theirs. And so they can't just drop by. And so obviously you're feeling uncomfortable about this. So this is something that you need to talk to your partner about. You need to let your partner know that I'm uncomfortable with this. And he or she needs to say something about it, because there's no reason for them to keep popping up like, here I am. And it makes it difficult for the kids. Now that we're talking about boundaries, even when you're dropping the kids off, there's no reason to have these long, lengthy conversations. Or some people try to still be friends. First of all, that confuses the kids, because really they want their parents back together. So if you're sitting back and you're talking, you're laughing, and you're drinking or whatever together, the kids may think that you're getting back together. So now they're confused. And then that person that's still grieving and that just didn't want to let you go, now they may think that, oh, the door is open for us to get back together. So boundaries need to be set not only at your house, but when you and the ex are interacting. There's no reason to sit down and linger and talk and visit and come by. You're not together anymore. And I know some people, they may say, I still want to be friends. There's a difference between being friendly and cordial than you being a friend to your ex, where you sit out and you go out. And because remember, this person may have a problem with respecting boundaries. So I hope I answered that question for you. And so, um, like I said, in my coaching program, I really go into this because the ex partner can really make or break a relationship, and it can cause people to become very stressful. And so, in order for that not to happen, you have to have the foundation laid at the beginning. Because remember, if you're building a new house and there's cracks in the foundation, eventually it's going to show up in the building, in the house. It's going to start water coming in and maybe mold. And so that's why when they put the foundation, they make sure there's no cracks in it. So with my coaching program, I help you eliminate those cracks. I help you build that solid foundation with your blended family. So that's all I have today. And so later on in this week, I'm going to have someone that's going to talk about their communication with the ex partner and how it affected their relationship. And don't forget, on next Monday, that's our last day of the series, we're going to be talking about communication with the grandparents and then the other extended family. So hopefully you can join me, and I hope that you're getting value out of these different discussions that I'm having. So drop a hashtag replay and then give me a comment and let me know how this is really helping. All right, so for Motivation Monday, remember all the tips that I gave you and how to communicate with your ex partner. All right, have a good day. Bye bye.